Welcome to Brightly You Radiant Being, the show that wildly recognizes, encourages, and invests in the radiance we all carry so you can shine your brightest. Each episode, we share soul-driven advice and topics to help you live more brightly in mind, body, and spirit. Through sharing our experiences, friendship, and passions, we hope to impact you to step more brightly into yourself, inch by inch.
Hey, Amy.
Hey, Tracy.
That was a deep sigh. What's going on, friend?
Well, we did just record the other episode, but it is funny. It's so funny and synchronistic and a little magical how these episodes move together.
Yeah, we planned this year a full year in advance. I think last year we did it by quarter to half year, but depending on what was going on, we were really flexible and we changed and added and moved stuff around. And we planned a whole arc of conversation this year with kind of a common theme or inspiration. And we haven't really deviated from it. And it's blending in ways that and layering on top of each other in ways that I hadn't anticipated or expected.
No.
So it's been, I know, like in our little opener, we talk about, sharing our experiences and what we're going through. And, unlike a lot of other self-development and philosophy podcasts or whatever we're labeled under, a lot of these people are either, I've done it and here's how you should do it and here's how to be successful, or they read somebody else's book and they're like, I read it, so you didn't have to, which I don't understand. I always tell you to go read the book. Someone else wrote it, not me.
Well, and honestly, we all get something different out of it, right?
Well, and a lot of podcasts are just so results driven. And you and I, we're kind of doing this in real time.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the conversation I have with you. And I really love hearing the feedback from the people we know and don't know, but that listen to the show and give us feedback on it. To kind of get a sense that a lot of other people are going through these things too. Mm-hmm. And in our last episode on transformation, you had brought up at the end of the show an interview from a couple of years ago and some things that the woman had been successful in and what kind of spurred her to do some of the things that she was working on. And it just made me realize that we're all in a period of transformation right now, whether we want to or not. And I think it kind of causes cognitive dissonance when society changes and it breaks up our worldview if we're not open to change, if we're not ready to change.
Wow, that's a really good point. And I think that's how you also get like wildly different aspects and perspectives is because some people, they literally, like you said, dissonance. Yes, where you are like literally, I'm not seeing it.
Does not compute.
It does not compute.
If I were to accept this thing as a new truth, everything else I believe is now false as well, right?
Danger, Will Robinson. Right? Danger, Will Robinson.
I can empathize with those people who are refusing to change and transform, but culturally and societally, we have had so much happen in the past few years. And there's a lot of people that keep saying, expecting it to go back to normal, and that normal cannot possibly exist anymore. Oh. And people are talking about new normals. It's too soon to have an established new societal normal. We're still changing. We're still calibrating.
Another really good point. Thank you for that. There is no new normal. It's too soon
yet. And we might have it, but so often normal isn't necessarily normal. It's just status quo.
It's and just what you're used to.
Yeah, I think the change that we're going through right now, that technology and our connection to one another and our connection to information is really highlighting. We don't need a status quo to survive as a culture, or a civilization, or a global civilization. We have these worldwide perspectives. We can really personalize what we have in our lives and what we do and where we go. We no longer need a majority, or even the prior majority was never really the majority for a while now, right?
Right.
We're recognizing the diversity that exists and the different viewpoints that come with it. And so for transformation, it's just we're all going through our own individual personal transformations, whether we know it or not, all the time. And then couple that with transformations we're being forced into both around us and in us. And you had asked how I was doing with transformation. And I've been wondering for a while, like, what's next? Like, just waiting for the shoe to drop, kind of a feeling that I feel this precipice of change building in my life. And I've been making space and feeling lazy for not being more forceful with it and more proactive and more my normal, like, just make it happen self. Cause I can tell something big is changing and I don't know what it is. So I can't prepare for it. And someone said the other day, patience isn't waiting. And I said, oh shit, I've just been waiting. I haven't been patient. Patience is a verb. Like, patience is an action that you can do. It doesn't feel like it, because if you're not doing it right, it does just feel like waiting.
Thank you for that, because some people, even a dictionary will say patience is a noun, and I don't believe it's a noun either. I believe it is a verb. Sorry, go ahead.
I just talked for like 6 minutes and 37 seconds.
But I didn't even have that in the notes, but I had noticed that they describe patience as a noun. And I thought that doesn't seem right to me, because it feels like an active event inside of me when I am active, because I believe I am actively patient.
A noun is a person, place, or a thing. A verb is an action. An adverb describes a verb. And an adjective describes a noun.
So patience could almost be like an adjective in a way. That is a very patient person. They have patience, but apparently having patience is a noun.
You can have it, but you can also be it.
Yes. But I'm agreeing with you 100%. And I also think you can actively be patient and do actions that are either creating patience or displaying patience.
Because I feel like people who have moments or acts of patience, or they have patience, it's kind of the same reason why I don't like the word tolerate, because at its core, like, that's the most you can do is just tolerate something. That's not really an action. That's kind of it's been forced upon you and you're just not being a dick about it. Like, that's not.
And the funny thing is that makes more sense to me. Because the explanation for patience that is just like ridiculous. It sounds more like tolerate. The quality of being patient as the bearing of provocation, annoyance, misfortune, or pain without complaint. What? No loss of temper, irritation. Just a second. When confronted with delay, to have patience with the slow learner. Are you kidding me? And then this other one was like, it's like waiting for a pie to cool before eating it. I agree with you. It does feel more like tolerating. Patience to me is more like this. I have grace for the things that are happening around me and the people that are around me, and they also do not affect me. And I am my own person. And so what they're doing is it's their business.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to patience, there's going to be low vibe ways to display it and high vibe ways.
Yes.
So the low vibe way is, I'm going to wait through this politely as an adult because it would look bad if I didn't, or it would cause conflict in my life if I didn't.
Yeah.
And then I loved how you said the high vibe to me is what we talk a lot about, having grace for a person, place, or a thing, or a situation.
Yeah.
And to me, that higher vibe state is more a character trait. To me, being a patient person is a character trait versus I have patience, which that sounds like something you could lose. You could drop real quick. If you have it, you can let it go.
I think that I almost feel like there could be like a deep rooted patience, and then sort of this other patience that you can lose quickly with like the child who won't put their shoe on and they're doing it on purpose. And then sometimes you do sort of have to lose your patience a little tiny bit sometimes to be like, okay, we're leaving now.
Okay,
Get your
well,
shoe on.
here's something, they don't teach you this about patience. You're just kind of told to be patient. I don't think anybody really teaches you how,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
only when you witness it being demonstrated, or you're like, oh, wow, I don't have the grace she does or the patience she has, don't know how she does it. But for me, like when I used to work with little toddlers with autism, so 2 years old already, the regular developmental things that can cause adults a lot of strife in life. But then you add on to it all the difficulties of having autism. Many of them were nonverbal, had a lot of sensory issues. So they had bigger emotions and experiences with processing what's going on around us.
Yeah.
And they taught us for when I was working with them, what is the purpose of what we're doing? What is the outcome we're going through? Is it to paint the picture? Are we looking for a picture to hang on our wall? Or is it the process and the experience of doing the picture or of doing the event, right? And so for some things, like, you just got to put your shoes on and go to the grocery store, right? So for the adult, we have a task we have to complete.
Yeah.
And so
absolutely.
it's really easy to lose your patience because it seems so simple. But for the kid, their outcome, that's not their errand, right? They want to know how to tie their shoe, damn it. Like they want to do it and they want to do it themselves. And so it's just so many different ways to look at the situations you're in, and who's having patience for what. I don't.
Okay, I have a question though for you, not the one that I wrote in the show notes.
Well, I have an answer for that one.
I know, that's why I'm asking you a different one. How patient with you are yourself with where you are in your life?
You took that from my answer, didn't you?
No? No, I didn't.
I had typed in the notes, can you be patient with yourself?
I didn't even look at me. I'm like this.
Does it seem like an oxymoron to hold patience with yourself or not? Like, it's kind of like what I say all the time, that statement I told myself, like, who's telling who what?
And see, I actually disagree because I tell myself things all the time. And then I answer myself
but
too.
like, who's in charge?
Exactly. Okay. So are you saying you don't think you can be patient with yourself, or are you saying that just doesn't make sense to you?
Both. It's both the existential. So like, I think you need to have patience with yourself, but that whole concept of, can you be patient with yourself? Can you talk to yourself? Can you tell yourself things? Who's telling who what? Like, why aren't you just it?
You're so funny. So
I need to go back.
Because I think that literally we just were talking about this. There's so many times that I will say that I do use like the Jen Sincero quote that she talked about in her book, when you're trying to deal with yourself, when you think you've done something wrong or you're looking at other people, you just picture yourself or them as little bunnies and you're just doing the best you can. And so it's just like, I'm just a little bunny doing the best I can. And I think that once again, if you can hold grace for other people, that you should hold grace for yourself. The reason why this seemed so interesting to me, this patience, is because of the transformation piece. And do we get impatient with the transformation not happening fast enough or the way we thought it would happen?
And so to me, it's not about, again, like, having patience with yourself feels more like that low vibe form of patience that I talked about, where you could drop it. Right. And to really,
what about having patience with your life where it's at?
Well, right. But so to really, truly have patience with yourself, it has to be embodied as a characteristic and a way of being and thinking that you already. So instead of having patience with yourself, you just are patience in you. It's just already built in. So we've talked a lot about like changing your perspective, different things like that. And so for me, when I define patience, or like, people who are patient people, what does that look like to me? The people that I I used to say, I have nearly an unlimited source of patience, but for the select few of individuals in this world, once it's gone, it's gone. That there are some people who have depleted it pretty impressively. And so when I kind of like looked at like why is that, and why do these people challenge you? And when I look at the people who seem to just truly embody that grace that we talk about, I see that higher vibe of just being patient versus having patience is you have a lack of expectations. You're open, you have flow, flexibility, ease, comfort, and you're not time bound. And a lot of times when we're calling on ourselves to be patient, it's about other people's needs versus our own, and allowing other people's needs to be put up front. And so to be patient with yourself, I feel like you're ignoring your true needs for what you think you need.
Okay, talk more about that, ignoring your true needs, because I do have a question in here later about like, is it your patience or is it your impatience, or is it someone else's impatience, on top of you? So does someone else, are you sort of embodying someone else's impatience about where you should be right now?
Oh,
yeah. That kind of thing.
So what was your question?
I can't remember.
Well, so around the needs thing, I think is where we were going. To me, if I'm finding the need to be patient with myself or patient with my life, I'm feeling impatient about something. So I'm glad you brought that up. And so if I were to reflect, there's two Tracys in that scenario. The one who's doing stuff and the one who's upset about what is or isn't being done. Right. And so like, that's that reconciliation that I feel like has to occur, where there's clearly something I think I should be doing, but if I'm not doing it, why aren't I doing that? What need is that lack of action or a different action fulfilling?
Yes. And I think we always talk about that. It's a good question. It's like, is this something that maybe I shouldn't be pursuing anymore, or it's no longer a goal, or is that why I'm not doing it?
Yeah. So for when I get impatient or find I need to be patient, with myself, it's because there's a side of me that has this expectation and this expedited timeline. And there's the Tracy who's overwhelmed and just needs a night on the couch watching F-Boy Island and eating snacks and watching TikTok and just completely shutting down.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that's like, time is ticking. It's Thursday. What are you doing with your life? Let's go, let's go, let's go. And there's this other part of me that's like, this is life. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And you have to, I don't know. It's so weird. I'm not patient with myself. I'm not. It's why I have a podcast on personal development.
So I just want to read this thing. And also I want to comment on what you just said about one Tracy is saying this and another Tracy is saying that. Oh, I told myself who's telling who, and apparently you have two.
There's a third one that's just watching all this and shaking her head.
Well, that's your higher self. That's who that is. So I get notes from the universe. Mike Dooley sends these daily, and they're called notes from the universe. And sometimes they're just brilliant. I love getting them. They typically, lighten my mood for the day. But this one was on impatience. And he writes, or the universe writes, impatience is a sign of hurrying. Hurrying is a sign of worrying. Worrying is a sign of fear. And fear is a sign, Amy, that someone has temporarily forgotten that it's never too late to change their thoughts. Now, granted, the whole thing with notes from the universe is thoughts are things, right? And so your thoughts create your world. What I thought was interesting is that he went from impatience to fear.
Yes, I loved that.
Yeah. And so I feel like that is sort of a little trigger. I don't know if it is for you, but for me, it was like, oh, what am I afraid of? Like, what is this? What is it? Is it just a fear of not accomplishing this thing? Or is it a much deeper fear of something that is like, if I don't do this, I am an unlovable person, or, something like that.
Whoa.
I don't know.
I mean, that just makes me think of the transformation episode too, then. And how much of the time are we calling in or trying to force a transformation because we're afraid of what's going to happen if we don't?
Mic drop. Yep.
And it's just,
which honestly, if you did call forth that transformation out of fear, I don't believe it would stick.
I think true patience in life, when you look at the lifespan, birth to, birth to 100 years old, all that, it goes back to that quote from Mike Bergeron that I bring up all the time of happiness does not lie on the other side of achievement. And that it's the process. And so much of the culture we both grew up in, American culture, middle class, suburban culture, it's about what you're completing. It's about the end product. It's about what you're doing. And as soon as you're done, you don't get to celebrate what's next. Yeah, it's all about productivity.
Yes. So
I feel like that's a huge part of being patient with yourself and holding patience with your life, or having that character of patience, is removing the productivity from the overarching theme of your life.
Well said.
That's hard to do.
It is hard to do because it's baked into us, right? It's hard, but it does. Something came to me today. I don't know what I was doing, probably just, thinking about this and writing notes, and I wrote it in the show notes. And so I didn't get this from anyone else, I don't think, because it just popped into my head. And it was, impatience robs you of the sweetness of life. And I do believe that, because I believe when we're impatient and hurrying and rushing, that we're not in the moment. When we're trying to be productive all the time, again, we've taken ourselves out of where we are right now in the here and now, because productivity is all about the end product, right? It's the after you're done with something. And so I believe that when you can just sort of embody patience, you're more open to the magic and the sweetness of life. And if you have a problem, not a problem, but if you feel like you are impatient a lot, like, I don't think of you as impatient out in the world. Maybe with yourself, but not out in the world.
I try really hard to be. It's a value of mine. So I guess, again, going back to, I'm not trying to have it. I am trying to just embody it. Because it's a much more enjoyable life, to be honest. And I've been calling it grace. That's one of my top 10 values that I crafted for myself. And to me, it's like a subset of that, or a key component.
Agreed.
So thank you for noticing that, because I have, in the past 10 years, tried to cultivate that.
Yes. But I really want to hit on something that you said, that it's a much, and I can't remember if you said happier life or a better life when you are patient, because you're not impatience. Just think about that feeling, like your shoulders rise, and like just that stress level of impatience overtakes everything. And when you can embody patience, your day goes so much smoother, even as things come up.
I will say, going back to our boundaries episode, though, something you just said, though, made me think about. So sometimes when you're impatient, so a lot of patience is a balancing of someone else's needs and your own, right?
Yeah,
And sometimes
yeah.
it's with technology, right? Like technology, I'm really impatient with Siri. You should hear the words that come out of my mouth, right? Because I have an expectation that it'll work and she serves me. I pay for this service, right? But with
She
the people,
serves
with a
me.
person, I don't have that expectation of another person, right? Like there's a little bit more of a relationship going on. But so when it comes to patience, if you are noticing an imbalance of where you are impatient in your life or where you have patience, check in before telling yourself I need to cultivate patience. Check in and see if your needs aren't getting met. I think that's an important thing, that like perhaps the boundaries, someone's crossed a line or vice versa.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I also wanted to bring up there are times where patience does not belong. It doesn't belong in oppression. It doesn't belong in systemic racism. It doesn't belong in a lot of things that we are facing today.
Yeah,
So
patience
those
isn't
things,
politeness. It's a state of being that gives you ease in your day, right? Like,
right,
and there's
right,
nothing about any of those things you just mentioned that makes me feel any ease. And I'm in the
right.
privileged class of those areas that you brought up.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we do want to make that clear, that what we're talking about is just within yourself and the life that you're leading, and not, the
Yeah.
patriarchy.
I
So
will
anyways,
say on another side of it though, so going back to that whole patience isn't waiting, you
Mhm.
can be too patient. And I have been in
Mhm.
some areas of my life. And it recently came to me. So there is this book that I saw on social media a year or two ago. It's decades old, but it had really interesting things. And I saw it on social media and I wanted to get it. But guess what? 300,000 other people liked that video, and 4 times that saw that video. And so all the used copies were like $300 or just completely unavailable. A lot of, there was no supply and a high demand. And it wasn't in the library because it's completely out of print, really old. Everyone's probably wondering, why is this book blowing up? And it's because this one person who became an influencer found it at a store and talked about it. Right. And so I just kind of kept it in the back of my head until recently, when either you or my sister shared some books and we decided we're going to start a little witchy book club, and I went to order them. And when I hadn't been into that site in over a year, and when I logged in to see if they had those books, it was like, hey, this one that you liked is now available and it's $9, right? Because supply went down or demand went down, and they still had the supply. And so I bought it, and then it actually took the longest of all of them to come to me. And then it finally came on like a Friday afternoon, and I made a huge to-do. Like my Saturday morning, I made a fancy tea, and I had like this whole thing, and I open it up and I look at the other books by this author. I didn't even look at the author's name when it first came out or when I first heard of it. And I realized that the author of this book, I have had their book sitting next to me on my to be read pile for just as long as I have wanted the book that I ordered. Same author, a lot of the same concepts. I mean, they were published they were 2 different topics in the same realm. But here I was patiently waiting for that book to come back to me. And it did. And I feel like it did because the universe is like, she's too dumb to look at the resources we have given her in her life, that I didn't even realize. I had a lot of the information that I read in there, and it was good and all that. And it is a bit more specific in areas, but I could have started while I waited for the more specific pieces.
This is such a beautiful analogy. And yes, it was a specific, tangible thing that you could have started, but you can use that analogy in your life. So while you're patiently waiting for this thing, you could start this other thing that has to do with that. So, I mean, I love that story so much.
Oh,
and
I think I gave you a voice memo in the moment.
Did.
I realized, like I couldn't even, I was so like up here, just like, I couldn't even type. I couldn't formulate. I just had to like spew it out and just like, oh, damn it, Tracy. Like, so no. And again, I didn't show myself. I mean, it was funny, but I was a little impatient with myself there.
I think what I would have to say to myself is, oh, okay, the universe made me see this other book. the one that had gone up to $300. And then I was patiently waiting for that. And the universe was like, all right, let's just get it to her for $9. And then she'll finally see that book that's on her nightstand.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Fun fact after that, haven't read either of them. I mean, it's only been a week, but I'm just a little like, oh, thanks universe. But man, that one hurt. That one. Oh, so can you grow patience then?
I feel like there are certain tricks that you can do. We said the one thing that like, we're all just bunnies doing our best. And if you think about yourself as a little bunny and just how vulnerable you are,
you have no opposable thumbs.
No,
you can't even carry your young in your mouth.
Life is hard. So give yourself grace. Also, I would say slow those thoughts down if you can. Like, do what you need to do to just slow the loop. Stop the loop, slow the thoughts, take a breath, and maybe ask yourself some key questions like, why does this matter to me that it's not here yet? What is happening with this? Do another interview. Okay, so we talked about the stay interview. This will be the patience interview. I was going to come up with a better word. Maybe I'll think about it. Why are you hurrying it? Right? What do you fear? Those things that was talked about in the universe quote. Again, give yourself an interview, like come up and I think that can slow you down if you give yourself an interview. Like, why am I feeling this right now? Will I be disappointed if it doesn't happen? What is something I could do in the meantime to make me feel better? It's okay to do things to make you feel better.
And God, this is one I grapple with. Do I need to accept it's just not going to happen?
Yeah. We talk about that a lot. Do I need to accept? And maybe you could say, what's the worst that could happen if it doesn't happen? And then you get that on paper.
That could happen if something else happened.
Yes, I love that. And then I said this earlier, is this your impatience or is it someone else's? Is someone else impatient with where you are right now or with what you're doing? So I think that those are just little things to start with. And of course, our favorite, meditate, take walks in nature.
You know what? We haven't talked about this for a while, but something I got out of at the start of this year, but I'm trying to get back into is that whole affirmations where you ask yourself questions before bed and then you're like, goodbye brain, figure it out.
Why am I so patient with myself? Why do I embody patience with myself and others?
Or how about one thing we didn't even get to, we don't have a ton of time, but why are other people impatient with me? Where are other people impatient with me? Why do I think people are right? Like one of my sisters recently, I was really late to a coffee and I had set the time and I had come up with the idea and I left a little bit later and then hit traffic, all those things. Right. And so I was at most 10 minutes late, which is not that late. And so I sat down and I was apologizing via text and giving ETAs and sharing my maps destination. Right. So it wasn't like I was saying I was 10 minutes away when really I hadn't left the house yet. Right. Like I was genuinely, this just was minutes were compounding. And when I sat down, my sister's like, really, Tracy, it's okay. I'm not as judgmental about it as you are. And I said, whoa. I'm not judgmental about people who are late. I'm impatient with people who waste my time, right? Like that just feels disrespect. But
she didn't see the difference.
She didn't see it that way. And then that's also explained so much to me about why she was okay with being late all the time. She just thinks everyone's being judgmental with her. And so that's allowed me to be a little bit more patient.
Oh, I love it. This beautiful little circle, of patience.
And so, I mean, that is something with her that's one person that has exhausted the patience that I have is just around being timely. And in the past few years of adulthood and like becoming closer as friends and just having more discussions like this and whatnot, and being more open, I'm understanding her thought process and where she comes from and how she approaches time and doing things and all this stuff. And so I view it a little bit differently, and I'm able to give her a little bit more grace, or I'm able to prepare myself better, right? Like, and a lot of people in my family, it's her thing, right? We just anticipate it's going to happen. We've modified our patience with her. But it made me wonder, like, oh, this whole time she's had so much patience with me being judgmental with her. Like, what? Like, thanks for all your grace. Like, or you just clearly don't care what I think because your behavior hasn't changed. So the judgment isn't working if it's there. But I'm just wondering, like, where do people have to be patient with me? There are a few areas that I'm pretty open with and I know about, and I talk about my time blindness, or I know my excitement to like share that I know what you're talking about, or I can empathize, or I understand what you're saying. It comes off as interrupting, or being a more anecdotal storyteller type talker, as people with ADHD or people with autism tend to be, can make it seem like to some people like you're taking their story and making it yours, right? Whereas, so it's like these little things where if you look at patients that way, you can kind of see how you're reflected in other people and where you maybe can change, or maybe where you just need to embrace yourself and give yourself love and being like, oh, it's just how I communicate, right? Or like my sister be like, this is just who I am.
You're just a judgmental bunny.
You're just judgmental and I'm okay with it. I don't know. This is a good chat.
I think that's great points, really great points. And I hope that people are reflective to themselves, of themselves, about the people around them. And I think that everyone will end up healthier that way. So if this episode spoke to your little bunny soul, share it with a bunny friend. Sorry. If you have time, give us some love on your preferred platform with a rate, review, and subscribe. You can also reach out to us via Instagram and YouTube under The Brightly Podcast, or via email at brightlypodcast@gmail.com.
And with that, we hope you have a bright and beautiful day.